The cold was relentless. Our teeth chattered uncontrollably as we tried to descend in the darkness. That's when everything changed. The darkness surrounding me was not just the night. When I opened my eyes, I saw Tim crying over me. "You were dead." The story you're about to hear is a true account. The names of the characters and places have been changed to protect the privacy of those involved. If you believe in miracles or have experienced one, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe. The Montana cold seeped through the university windows as I walked absent-mindedly down the hallway. That's when I saw it. A small poster pinned to the Mountaineering Club's bulletin board. 8-day expedition in the Canadian Rockies. Looking for a partner. Something inside me stirred. I stared at that piece of paper, almost hypnotized. The words ice, challenge, and danger jumped out at me. I felt a shiver, but it wasn't fear. Was it? Excitement? Are you going to stand there all day, or what? Sarah's voice, my classmate, jolted me. What are you looking at so intently? Nothing, I replied automatically, but my eyes remained glued to the ad. Sarah leaned in and read the poster. Are you crazy? That sounds incredibly dangerous. But her words only fueled the flame that had ignited inside me. Maybe I am, I murmured, more to myself than to her. That night, I couldn't sleep. The idea of the expedition spun in my head. What was happening to me? This wasn't like me. I had always been the cautious guy, the one who thought twice before acting. But something had changed. The next morning, with dark circles under my eyes and my heart racing, I stood in front of the phone. My fingers trembled as I dialed the number on the ad. Hello? A deep voice answered on the other end of the line. Hello. I'm calling about the expedition ad, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Well, I didn't think anyone would respond, the man said, with a mix of surprise and amusement. I'm Tim. Do you have mountaineering experience? For the next hour, Tim and I discussed our experiences, skills, and expectations. The more we talked, the more my excitement grew. Look, Tim finally said, this isn't a game. The Canadian Rockies in March are unforgiving. We could die up there. Do you understand that? There was a moment of silence. His question hung in the air, heavy with gravity. I understand, I replied, surprised at the calm in my voice. But something tells me I have to do this. I can't explain it, Tim. It's like destiny is calling me. Tim chuckled. Destiny, huh? Well, destiny boy. I hope that destiny includes good. The ice crunched under my crampons as we climbed the frozen wall. Each step was a challenge, each movement a battle against gravity and the relentless cold. The sun began to sink below the horizon, painting the sky with a surreal palette of oranges, reds, and purples that contrasted dramatically with the pristine white snow and crystal-clear blue ice. Come on, we're almost there, Tim shouted from above, his voice barely audible over the howling wind. But I knew he was lying. We had severely underestimated the difficulty of this climb, and now we were paying the price. My muscles burned with every move. The ice hammer in my right hand felt like it weighed a ton, and my left arm trembled uncontrollably every time I drove the pick into the frozen wall. It would have been much easier with 2 ice axes, but in my youthful arrogance, I had decided I could manage with just one. How foolish I had been. The cold intensified as the sun dipped lower. I could feel the temperature plummeting, as if someone had suddenly opened the door to a giant freezer. My breath formed tiny clouds of vapor that froze almost instantly in my beard and on the collar of my jacket. Tim, I yelled, we need to hurry. Night is falling too fast. No response. Tim was too focused on his own struggle with the mountain. I could see his silhouette a few meters above me, moving at an agonizingly slow pace. We were both exhausted, our movements becoming increasingly clumsy and dangerous. Fear began to settle in my stomach like a cold, heavy weight. What if we didn't reach the summit before it got completely dark? What if we got stuck on this ice wall overnight? I knew that nighttime temperatures in the Canadian Rockies in March could drop well below freezing. We weren't equipped to spend the night exposed. If we didn't reach the summit soon, we might freeze to death. But there was something else driving me to keep going. An inner force I couldn't explain, a feeling that this climb was more than just a climb. It was as if the universe was pushing me towards something, though I had no idea what it could be. The last rays of the sun were fading when I finally reached Tim on a small ledge. His face was pale and covered with frost, his eyes wild with a mixture of fear and determination. "We're close," he said between gasps. "I can see the summit. Just a few more meters." I nodded, unable to speak due to exhaustion and the cold. My fingers were numb inside my gloves, and I could feel the onset of hypothermia creeping into my body. But we couldn't stop now. It was the summit or death. With one last superhuman effort, we pushed ourselves upward. Every movement was agony, each breath a stabbing pain in our frozen lungs. The world had shrunk to this moment, this struggle against the mountain and our own limits. And then, suddenly, we were there. The summit, a small, snow-covered plateau that marked the end of our ascent and the beginning of something far more dangerous. The relief lasted only a moment before the reality of our situation hit us. We were at the summit, yes, but now night had fallen completely. The cold was more intense than ever, and the wind howled around us like a hungry beast. "We did it," murmured Tim, his voice barely audible over the wind. "But now, how do we get down?" I looked around. The darkness was almost total except for the faint light of the stars. I could feel panic rising in my chest. We had made a fatal mistake by underestimating this mountain, and now we were paying the price. It was at that moment, standing on the summit of that frozen mountain, surrounded by the night and relentless cold, that I felt something inside me shift. A sense that I was on the verge of something big, something that went far beyond this mountain and this night. The darkness enveloped us like an icy blanket as we began our descent. The cold was relentless, piercing to the bone with a ferocity I had never experienced before. Every breath was a struggle. The icy air burned our lungs as if we were inhaling tiny needles of ice. "We can't stop," I murmured, more to myself than to Tim. My voice sounded strange, distorted by the uncontrollable chattering of my teeth. The fear of death was palpable, hanging in the air like a tangible presence. Our movements were clumsy and slow, our bodies numb from the extreme cold. Every step was a calculated risk, a battle against gravity and treacherous ice. Hypothermia was setting in quickly, clouding our thoughts and slowing our reactions. "Tim," I called to my companion, my voice barely audible over the howling wind. "How are you?" His response was an unintelligible grunt. I could see his silhouette a few meters ahead of me, moving with agonizing slowness. We both knew that if we stopped, if we surrendered to the cold even for a moment, it would be the end of us. The descent seemed endless. Every ledge, every stretch of vertical ice, was a new challenge that threatened to be our last. Our ropes were stiff from the cold, difficult to manage with our numb fingers. Every anchor, every rappel, was a test of our will to survive. But there was something more there, something I couldn't explain. In the midst of that desperate struggle for survival, I felt a strange sense that the universe was about to reveal its secrets to me. It was as if I were on the edge of something transcendental, something that went beyond our precarious situation on the mountain. The hours passed, though time had lost all meaning in that frozen hell. The cold intensified, if that were even possible. I could feel my body fighting to maintain its vital functions. My thoughts became confused, sometimes delirious. At one point, I thought I saw lights dancing in the darkness. Northern lights? Or perhaps my mind was playing tricks on me. "Tim," I called again. "Do you see that?" There was no response. Panic overtook me as I realized I couldn't see Tim. Where was he? Had he fallen? Or was it me who was lost? It was then that I stumbled, my legs finally giving in to exhaustion and the cold. I fell onto the hard snow, the impact jolting my numb body. For a moment, the idea of staying there, of surrendering to the cold and the sleep that threatened to overtake me, seemed tempting. But something inside me rebelled against that idea. A force, a determination I didn't know I possessed, drove me to get up. "You can't stop," I told myself. "You have to keep moving." With superhuman effort, I stood up. My muscles protested. My whole body screamed in pain, but I kept going, one step after another, fighting against the cold, against the darkness, against the mountain itself. And it was in that desperate struggle that something changed. The darkness surrounding me no longer seemed to be just the night. It was something deeper, vaster. I felt as if my consciousness was expanding beyond the limits of my frozen body. What is happening? I screamed internally, my mind struggling to understand the strange sensation overwhelming me. There was no answer, at least not one I could understand in words. Instead, I saw a distant light, a bright point in the immensity of the darkness that surrounded me. The light seemed to be approaching quickly, or maybe I was the one moving toward it. It was as if the cosmos itself was calling me, drawing me towards something beyond my comprehension. In that moment, suspended between life and death, between physical reality and something beyond, I realized that this night, this terrible trial on the mountain, was more than a struggle for survival. It was a threshold, a turning point in my existence. Hypothermia, exhaustion, the fear of death, all of it was still there. But now there was something else, a sense of standing on the edge of a cosmic revelation. The relentless cold, the enveloping darkness, were no longer mere threats to my physical survival. They had become the backdrop of an experience that defied all understanding. As I fought for each step, each breath, I felt I was approaching something transcendent. The mountain, the night, the cold had all transformed into a path towards something greater, something that would forever change my perception of reality. And so, in the middle of that seemingly endless night, I found myself not only fighting for my life, but also on the verge of a discovery that would shake the foundations of my existence. The true test, the true journey, had only just begun. Suddenly, everything changed. The darkness enveloping me was no longer simply the mountain's night. It was something deeper, vaster, beyond anything I had ever experienced before. I felt as if my consciousness was expanding beyond the limits of my frozen body, reaching into infinity. What is happening? I cried internally, my mind fighting to comprehend the strange sensation overtaking me. There was no answer, at least not one I could understand with words. Instead, I perceived a distant light, a bright point in the immensity of the darkness surrounding me. The light seemed to draw closer quickly, or perhaps it was I who was approaching it. It was as if the cosmos itself were calling me, pulling me towards something beyond my comprehension. The feeling was both terrifying and fascinating. As the light approached, I felt my being detached from my physical body. I no longer felt the biting cold of the mountain or the pain of my exhausted muscles. It was as if I were floating in a vast ocean of pure consciousness. The light grew more intense, brighter than my human eyes could have borne. But in this state, I felt no pain, only a sense of awe and reverence. The light seemed to contain all the knowledge of the universe, all the answers to questions humanity has asked since the dawn of time. I tried to speak, to ask what was happening, but I realized I no longer had a voice. I didn't need it. In this state, communication was instant, a direct exchange of thoughts and emotions. Then I saw it, or rather, I felt it. An immense presence, indescribable with human words. It was as if the entire universe was conscious and was looking directly at me. The sensation was overwhelming, but at the same time, incredibly comforting. The presence spoke to me, not with words, but with an understanding that flowed directly into my consciousness. It showed me visions of the cosmos, galaxies spinning in the vastness of space, stars being born and dying, the eternal dance of creation and destruction. I saw Earth from above, a beautiful blue orb floating in the void of space. I saw the history of humanity unfold before my eyes, from the first humans to modern civilization. I saw the future, infinite possibilities branching out in all directions. And then, the presence showed me something else. It showed me myself. I saw my life unfold before me, every moment, every decision, every joy and every pain. I saw the connections I had formed with others, the impact I had made on the world, however small it might be. The understanding struck me with the force of a cosmic revelation. Everything was connected. Every thought, every action, every particle in the universe was interwoven in an infinite web of causality and meaning. In that moment, I realized that what I was experiencing went beyond life and death. It was a glimpse into the true nature of reality, a reality infinitely vaster and more complex than my human mind could fully grasp. The presence communicated a fundamental truth to me, that all of us, were an integral part of this grand cosmic dance. We weren't separate beings, but individual expressions of a universal consciousness. As I absorbed this revelation, I felt a profound and absolute peace. All the fear, all the anxiety I had felt on the mountain vanished. In its place, I felt a deep connection with everything that existed. But even in the midst of this transcendent experience, a part of me remained aware of my situation on the mountain. I knew my physical body was in danger, that Tim might need my help. That was when I felt the presence offering me a choice. I could remain in this state of cosmic unity, or I could return to my body, to the struggle on the mountain. The decision was mine. For a moment, the temptation to stay in this state of bliss was overwhelming. Why return to pain, to cold, to fear? But then I remembered Tim, my parents, all the people I cared about. I remembered that I still had a life to live, lessons to learn, experiences to share. With an effort of will that seemed to encompass my entire being, I chose to return. The instant I made that decision, I felt myself rushing back to my body. The light receded, the vastness of the cosmos contracted, and suddenly, I opened my eyes. I was back on the mountain. The cold hit me like a hammer. But something had changed. Though my body was weak and frozen, my mind was clear, filled with a determination I had never known before. I knew that what I had experienced would change my life forever. I had been at the threshold of existence itself. I had glimpsed the secrets of the universe. And now, I had to find a way to integrate that experience with my life on Earth. With newfound strength born from my transcendent experience, I stood up. I had to find Tim. We had to survive this night. Because now I understood that every life, every moment, was precious and meaningful in the great tapestry of the cosmos. What I experienced next defies any earthly description. It was as if my entire existence had unfolded before me, not just as a spectator but as an active participant in every moment of my life. I saw my whole life play out before my eyes, but it wasn't a simple repetition of events. It was a multidimensional experience, where I could feel not only my own emotions and thoughts, but also those of every person I had ever interacted with. It was as if I could see the invisible threads connecting each action, each word, each thought with the vast tapestry of existence. First, I relived my childhood. I saw my parents, young and full of hope, holding a baby who was me. I could feel their love, their concern, their dreams for my future. I saw my sister Andrea, her bright smile before life took her down a different path. I felt the warmth of family embraces, the aroma of my grandmother's cooking, the laughter of my cousins during Greek celebrations. Then, the scene shifted. I saw the day Andrea left, the note on the kitchen table. But this time, I didn't just see the event. I felt the heartbreaking pain of my parents, the confusion and fear of my younger siblings, and the whirlwind of emotions in Andrea as she made that decision that would forever change our lives. Is this death? I asked the vastness surrounding me. The answer came not in words, but in a profound and overwhelming understanding of the universal love that permeates all existence. I saw every moment of my life, every decision I had made. I saw the times I had hurt others, whether intentionally or not. I experienced the pain I had caused, not as punishment but as a lesson in empathy and understanding. I saw the times I had helped others, and I felt the joy and gratitude my actions had generated. But it wasn't just my life that I saw. Somehow, I could perceive the interconnection of all lives. I saw how my actions, even the smallest ones, had ripple effects that extended far beyond my immediate awareness. A kind word here, a gesture of help there, had changed lives in ways I had never imagined. In the midst of this transcendent experience, I realized that what I was witnessing was not a judgment. There was no condemnation, only a compassionate understanding of human nature and our struggles. I felt an unconditional love that embraced everything, a love that accepted every part of me, even those I was ashamed of. Then, the perspective widened even more. I saw the earth, a small blood in the vastness of the cosmos. I saw the history of humanity, from its humble beginnings to the present. I saw wars and peace, creation and destruction, love and hate. But through it all, I saw a continuous thread of evolution and growth. I realized that each life, each experience, was an essential part of this vast cosmic tapestry. Every human being, every creature, every particle in the universe had its role in this cosmic dance. There were no accidents, no coincidences. Everything was interconnected in a network of causality and meaning that extended beyond our earthly comprehension. In that moment, I understood that death was not the end but a transition. Consciousness, love, the essence of who we are, continues beyond the confines of our physical bodies. Life and death were part of the same eternal cycle, each equally important and significant. This revelation brought with it a profound peace. The fear of death that I had felt on the mountain faded, replaced by a serene understanding of my place in the universe. I understood that, whether I lived or died on that mountain, my existence had a purpose and a meaning beyond what I could imagine. But with this understanding came a responsibility as well. I saw that every action, every thought, every choice we make has an impact on the whole. We were co-creators of our reality, active participants in the evolution of the universe. As I absorbed these cosmic truths, I felt an overwhelming wave of gratitude. Gratitude for life, for every experience, for every person I had known. Gratitude for the chance to be part of this magnificent mystery that is existence. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the vision started to fade. I felt myself being pulled back to my body, back to the physical reality of the frozen mountain. But I carried with me a knowledge that would change my life forever. As I returned, I heard a final message, not with my ears, but with my whole being. Remember. Remember what you have seen. Remember who you truly are. And share this love with the world. I opened my eyes, back in my frozen body on the mountain. The cold still bit at my skin. The danger was still real. But something fundamental had changed. I was no longer the same man who had begun this ascent. I had experienced something beyond life and death, and that experience had transformed me forever. When I opened my eyes, I saw Tim crying over me. His tears fell onto my face, mixing with the snow and ice. "You were dead," he sobbed, his voice broken with emotion and exhaustion. "I lost you for a moment. I thought you were gone forever." I tried to speak, but my throat was dry, and my lips cracked from the cold. I managed to make a hoarse sound, just enough for Tim to know I was alive. His eyes lit up with a mix of relief and wonder. Slowly, I began to feel my body again. The cold was intense, piercing, but somehow it seemed less threatening than before. My mind was clear, filled with the visions and understandings I had experienced on my journey beyond life. With superhuman effort, I managed to sit up. Tim helped me, holding me as my body adjusted to physical reality once more. "What happened?" he asked, his voice still trembling. "I lost sight of you for a moment, and when I found you, you looked dead," I finished for him. My voice sounded strange even to me, as if it came from very far away. "Tim, I experienced something I can't explain in words." I wanted to tell him everything I had seen, everything I had learned. I wanted to share the beauty and infinite love I had experienced. But how to explain the unexplainable? How to translate a cosmic experience into human words? I realized I couldn't. At least not in that moment, not in those circumstances. We had to survive first. We had to get off this mountain. With a new determination born of my transcendent experience, I stood up. "We have to move," I said. "We can do it. We're going to get out of here." Tim looked at me with a mixture of confusion and awe. Just moments ago, I had been on the brink of death, and now I was standing, ready to continue. He couldn't understand it, and honestly, neither could I fully comprehend it. We began our descent with renewed energy. Each step was still a challenge, the cold still biting at our skin, but something had fundamentally changed. It was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a journey back, a return with purpose. As we descended, I realized that the world around me seemed different. Colors appeared more vivid, even in the dim light of dawn. I could feel life pulsing in every rock, in every snowflake. The world that had once seemed a hostile and dangerous place now revealed itself as a beautiful and complex manifestation of the same life force I had experienced in my vision. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we reached the base of the mountain. The sun began to rise on the horizon, bathing the landscape in a golden light that seemed almost supernatural. Tim and I looked at each other, exhausted but alive, and embraced in silence. But even in that moment of relief and triumph, I knew that my true journey was only just beginning. I had returned, yes, but I was no longer the same man who had started that climb. I had experienced something beyond death, and that experience had transformed me in ways I was only beginning to understand. In the days and weeks that followed, I struggled to integrate my experience into my daily life. The world seemed both familiar and completely new. I saw the interconnectedness of all things, the spark of divinity in every person I met. But I also felt profoundly alone, carrying a knowledge I could not fully share. I tried to explain what I had experienced to my loved ones, to Tim, to my parents. But words always seemed inadequate, pale shadows of the truth I had glimpsed. My silence began then, not by choice, but from the impossibility of translating the ineffable into human language. However, even though I could not explain my experience with words, I felt fundamentally transformed. I no longer feared death. I saw it as a transition, another step in the great cosmic dance in which we are all a part. I felt a compassion and love for all beings that sometimes overwhelmed me. My perspective on life had completely changed. The daily worries that once burdened me now seemed insignificant compared to the vastness of the cosmos I had glimpsed. At the same time, each moment, each interaction, became precious and meaningful, knowing the impact that every action can have on the grand tapestry of existence. I realized that my task now was to live according to what I had learned. I couldn't simply return to my previous life as if nothing had happened. I had to find a way to incorporate this new understanding into my daily life, to somehow share the love and wisdom I had experienced. And so began my search for a new way of living, of being. I started studying philosophies and spiritual practices, seeking ways to deepen and expand the understanding I had gained. I immersed myself in meditation, striving to reconnect with that expanded consciousness I had experienced. And slowly, day by day, I began to find ways to live my truth. It wasn't always easy. Sometimes I felt like a stranger in my own world. But every time I looked into someone's eyes and saw the reflection of that divine spark we all share, I knew I was on the right path. My experience on the mountain was not the end of my journey, but the beginning. It had shown me a greater truth, and now my task was to live that truth, to share it not just with words, but with every action, every choice, every moment of my life. And so, transformed by what I had experienced beyond life, I began my true journey, a journey that continues to this day. A journey of discovery, of growth, of love. A journey that, I now know, is the very purpose of our existence.